The morning began like any other in our quiet suburban enclave of Willow Creek, Virginia, on a crisp October day in 2024. The sun was barely cresting over the rooftops, casting long shadows across neatly manicured lawns. My wife, Laura, and I were perched at the kitchen table, nursing steaming mugs of coffee, watching the usual parade of early risers, dog walkers, and joggers shuffle past our window. At 6:15 a.m., the world felt soft, predictable. Then, a faint chirp sliced through the calm. Laura froze, her mug halfway to her lips, her brow furrowing. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, glancing at her handbag slung over a chair. Her phone buzzed, and a notification flashed. "Unknown AirTag detected near you." We chuckled at first, assuming it was a glitch or maybe a prank from her coworker, Sarah, who was notorious for misplacing her keys. But then the chirp came again, sharper, insistent, burrowing into the silence. It was coming from her bag. My heart skipped. This wasn't a joke. This was a sign-all warning. And whoever had planted it had no idea they'd targeted the wrong man. Someone who'd spent years shaping the very privacy protocols for Apple's AirTag system. We tore into Laura's bag like detectives on a deadline. Lipstick, crumpled receipts, a spare phone charger, a half-eaten protein bar, nothing out of the ordinary. But the chirp persisted, taunting us. I unzipped the inner lining with surgical precision, and there it was, a small AirTag taped to a piece of cardboard, wrapped in a crumpled tissue like a secret buried in a makeshift grave. My stomach churned. I scanned the serial number with my phone, and the result hit me like a freight train. The tag was actively linked to an Apple I'd not lost, not deactivated, but deliberately tracking. Someone had been watching Laura's every move. I logged into my work terminal, my fingers flying across the keyboard. As an Apple security consultant, I had access to tools most people didn't even know existed. The tracking history unrolled before me like a digital confession. Laura's Tuesday run to the grocery store, her Wednesday lunch at her mom's place, her Friday pickup at our son's preschool, even a quick stop at the pet store. Every step, time-stamped, mapped, recorded. Someone had been shadowing her life, and we'd been blissfully unaware. Until now. Laura sank into a chair, her face pale. "Is this stalker-level bad?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer right away. The truth was darker than bad. The AirTag had been hidden with care, muffled to delay detection, wrapped to avoid rattling. This wasn't a prank or a neighbor's tech blunder. This was calculated. Someone who knew Laura's routines, someone close enough to slip into her orbit unnoticed. We both turned to the window. Across the street, behind a row of pristine azaleas, stood Margaret, our neighborhood's self-crowned overseer. She held a thermos, a pair of binoculars dangling from her neck like a badge of authority. She caught our gaze, smirked, and raised a hand in a mocking wave. Margaret wasn't just any neighbor. She was the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, a woman who'd once drafted a 15-page manifesto because our mailbox color clashed with community standards. She'd photographed trash cans left out 10 minutes past curfew and held emergency meetings to debate whether holiday inflatables were visual vandalism. Obsessive, didn't begin to cover it. But this was a new frontier. This was illegal. I pulled up the AirTag's unique ID and filed a privacy breach report through Apple's internal system, knowing it would flag the linked account. Within minutes, my screen lit up. The tag was registered to a device labeled Margaret's MacBook. No surname, just Margaret. Her digital footprint was a tangled web, her husband's phone, an old iPad, even a forgotten Apple TV, all tied to the same ID. Apple's abuse response team was already on it. Laura's mind raced, piecing together clues. Last week spat over our non-compliant porch planters. Margaret hovering too close when she delivered a printed citation about our fence height. The eerie comment she'd made days ago. "Hope your cat's vet visit went okay. Saw you dash out in a hurry." We hadn't mentioned the vet to anyone out on social media, not in passing. It was a 15-minute errand for a scratch paw. But Margaret knew. Because she'd had eyes and now we knew. Your son Laura the whole time. We didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed evidence that would hold up in court. I scoured our front door camera footage and found gold. Margaret, lingering on our porch after dropping off her latest complaint, her hands slipping in her jacket, then brushing Laura's tote bag for just a second too long. The video was crisp, undeniable. I backed it up to our server and cloud, my pulse pounding. We were stunned. For at least a week, maybe longer, Margaret had been tracking Laura's life. The only reason we'd caught it was a recent Apple update that sharpened AirTag detection. Without it, she might have spied for months. We took our case to the Willow Creek Police Station, armed with a USB drive of logs, screenshots, and footage. The desk officer, a burly guy who looked like he still wore his high school Letterman jacket, shrugged. "It's just an AirTag, not a bomb," he said, smirking. Laura's eyes flared, but I stayed calm, laying out the timeline. The hidden tag, the linked Apple ID, the tracked routes, Margaret's trespassing to Planet. I mentioned my role at Apple. His smirk faded. He called a detective, a no-nonsense woman named Carter, who scanned the logs and asked, "Has this woman ever threatened you?" I recounted Margaret's HOA vendettas, her veiled insults, her uncanny knowledge of private details. Carter nodded. "This is electronic surveillance. Possibly stalking. I'm opening a case." Back home, Margaret was lounging in a lawn chair across the street, waving like she knew we'd been to the cops and thought she was untouchable. Laura stormed inside. I stood on the porch, locking eyes with Margaret. Her smile faltered just for a second. She knew something was coming. That night, I called a contact in Apple's device tracing unit. He confirmed Margaret's account was under review for multiple AirTag violations. Then I ran a test, pinging her Bluetooth devices. The results froze my blood. She tagged at least 3 other neighbors: a teenage girl, a single mom, a retiree who'd complained about feeling watched. Margaret wasn't just a busybody. She was a predator. Fueled by fury, I built a case as airtight as a vault. Using my home's Bluetooth scanning Riga setup of Raspberry Pi nodes I'd rigged for security testing, I mapped 2 more AirTags nearby, one in a car across the street, another in our neighbor Emily's minivan. Emily, who'd just had twins, wasn't tagging her own vehicle. I slipped anonymous notes into her mailbox and 2 others, urging them to check for trackers and contact Detective Carter. Every ping, every timestamp was logged. Laura, shaken, asked, "Why does she do this? What's her endgame?" I had no answer. Margaret wasn't stealing or extorting. She was watching, controlling, feeding some twisted need. That made her dangerous. By noon, Deputy Larson arrived, clipboard in hand, to discuss a possible stalking incident. We showed him the AirTag, the footage, the logs. My signal maps pinpointed Margaret's yard as the source. He looked torn between awe and unease, but promised to escalate the case. At 3 p.m., the doorbell rang again. It was Margaret, dressed like she was marching in a battle-starched blazer, clipboard clutched like a shield. Her smile was venomous. "I hear you're spreading lies about me," she hissed. "I've never touched your wife's bag. Stop this defamation, or I'll call the police." I didn't flinch. "Margaret, we have you on camera. The AirTag's tied to your MacBook. It's with a detective now. You should stop talking." Her face flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut and stormed off. 30 minutes later, a squad car rolled up. Margaret was in her driveway, flailing like she was auditioning for a melodrama. The officer listened, then approached us. "She says you're cyberstalking her," he said. I handed him a folder: logs, footage, neighbor reports. He exhaled sharply. "This is a lot. I'll forward it to Carter." That night, Emily posted anonymously in our neighborhood chat, describing an AirTag under her stroller. 2 more women shared similar stories. The group erupted, neighbors coordinating privately. Margaret wasn't just a nuisance anymore. She was a villain. Then, a chilling twist. At 10 p.m., my terminal pinged. Margaret's husband's phone was linked to a new AirTag. She hadn't stopped. I triggered an automated warning to her Apple ID. "Cease unauthorized tracking. Evidence submitted to law enforcement. Further action may result in bans and charges." By morning, her devices went darky pad, watch, phone, all offline. She was trying to vanish, but it was too late. The next day, I met an Apple engineer friend at a secure lab. We extracted the AirTag's diagnostics and found something horrifying. The speaker was removed, replaced with a microphone from a DIY spy kit. This wasn't just tracking. It was wiretapping felony territory. I called Carter, who said a warrant was imminent. By evening, it was signed. Unmarked SUVs rolled into Margaret's driveway. Officers entered, emerging with boxes of electronics. Margaret's excuses crumbled as her husband watched, shell-shocked. Carter later confirmed, "You've helped stop a serial offender." She abused tech and power. The fallout was swift. The HOA ousted Margaret, her name erased from records. Apple blacklisted her accounts, disabling her smart home and cloud access. Her modified AirTag triggered FCC scrutiny for wiretapping. Neighbors rallied, hosting a community reclaim week with a cheeky AirTag-shaped sculpture at the park entrance, its plaque reading, "In memory of overreach." Mind your own business. Notes and cookies appeared on our porch, thanking us for exposing Margaret. But she had one last job, a shaky note taped to our mailbox. "You ruined me. Your privacy's next." We bagged it for Carter, another nail in Margaret's coffin. Apple Legal contacted the HOA, demanding digital safety education. A new rule required registering surveillance tech. Margaret's house hit the market at a fire sale price. She slunk away to her brothers in Maryland. No goodbyes, just the beep of a moving truck. Apple later asked me to record a privacy campaign voiceover, using Margaret's anonymized case. I agreed, not for vengeance, but to warn others. As a final touch, I planted a fake AirTag by the HOA sign, its LED blinking harmlessly. Neighbors laughed, but the message stuck. Laura got a promotion, our son's digital safety poster won awards, and our home felt ours again. Margaret picked the wrong family not because we were tougher, but because we knew the system she tried to exploit. She weaponized tech. We turn it back on her one beep at a time. What would you do if you found an AirTag in your bag? Should neighbors have the right to monitor each other's lives for community standards? Is tech like AirTags a tool for safety or a stalker's dream? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that make you question everything.